and welcome to lesson 2 of week 5. In this lesson, we are going to look at events in JavaScript. My name is Mildred. Now, in JavaScript, whenever something occurs that the program can respond to, that is called an event. So events are a way for JavaScript to interact with the users or with a browser action. Example is when we click a button. So we have the click event. When we load a page, we have the load event. When we type in a text box, we have input, we have key down. When we submit a form, we have a submit event. When we mouse over something, we have a mouse move event. And when we maybe resize a browser window, we have a resize event. So there are several examples of events. When you refer to your lesson resource, you'll see a list of them and when those events happen. Okay, so JavaScript supports a wide range of events and they are grouped into different categories. There are three main ways in which we can attach an event in JavaScript. One way, which is not recommended, but I want you to see it when it happens, is to have an inline event handler in your HTML document. And this inline means that on that particular HTML element, you want to add the attribute to it. So we have, let's say for click, let's say we have an on click event here is equal to, we want to now put in the pair of what will happen when the button is clicked. So when we put it here, we use on click like this, and let's say we want to put an alert box and want to say button was clicked like this. Okay, so we attach this click event to the button like this. This is simple, but it's not recommended. For large projects, you have to be doing this in each element. So when we click here, it says button was clicked. Okay, so we have that event attached. This is one way. The other way, which is the best, is to have an ID attribute. IDs are unique, so you want every element to be named uniquely, especially when you want to use JavaScript to access this element. So let's say we put this ID here to be button, and we head over to our JavaScript file and we want to put an event. We have the document object model where we look at the different structure of the objects or document object, and we'll look at that in the next lesson. But for now, we're going to just use part of that. This is one way that we can assign a function to the event of an element. Let's say we want to say document.get element by ID. The ID here that we set was btn, right? Yeah, the ID here was btn, so that's the ID. And we want to say .onClick. So .onClick is equal to, then we put a function. Here we just want to run the alert. So we say alert here is button was clicked like this. So because this file is already added here, so it will actually work on the button. So when I refresh this and I click on this, button was clicked, and I get the alert there. So this can handle only one event function per event type, and every time you do this, overwriting will occur because you can only handle one. So this is also not recommended. Now we can add event listeners, which is the recommended and the modern method of doing this. So instead of using all of this, we're going to delete this and try to add event listener, which is what is modern and what is recommended. So let's say we have button. Let's get the button. Let's say constant button is equal to document.get element by ID, and we want to get the button whose ID is btn. Now we save this in a variable called button. We want to add event listener to this button. So we say button.add event listener, and in a pair of parentheses, we want to put the event. Now if you put the event name now, because we are adding event listener, the on will not be part of it. So we said on click before, but now it's just going to be click event. So we're not using on click. So anything we put here is without the on. So click event and what you want to do. So let's create the function, and what we'll do when the button is clicked, we want to put the alert box like we did before. Let's say button click. Let's call this the first event. We can attach multiple events because this method is best and recommended. You can add another event listener for something else that is not click. Let's say we want to add, or we can just make this click again and say another function runs too. So let's just put another function. So when this is clicked, it displays this alert box. You say okay, let's just log to the console. I want to just illustrate two different events that can be attached to particular elements. So let's say another function runs. Let's do this in the console like this. And so when we come here and we click button click, first event, second event, console is not a function. I think it's console.log, sorry. So now we'll refresh this, we click button click, and another function runs in the console. So we can see how we allow multiple listeners, and it works with all the modern event handling, capturing for bubbling, for removal. We can put another event here. Let's say we want to put events like mouse over, and on mouse over, let's say alert. So apart from alerting, that things we can can do, change the CSS, change the color, everything. Mouse over like this. So let's see. Mouse over, it just puts the alert here. So you can create another function for mouse out, so the alert will not be there. All right, so you have that. Okay, and this will not allow you click because mouse over will always come there, but you can see that this always happens when you do this. So you can do mouse over, mouse out, and maybe you will use console.log here instead of alert. So mouse over, it logs to the console, and then you click it and button click here, so we'll see mouse over twice. So this is the best way using event listener. So you add event listener. Now when an event occurs, JavaScript will create an event object, and that event object contains information about it. So when we click, it has the type of event. It will tell you the type, which is click. It will give you the target. You can even get the X coordinate and the Y coordinate of the click. Let's try to simulate what we are talking about, because this will come in handy. Let's say we get this in the button class. I'll just do it this way: document.getElementById button dot, I'll add event listener, and I want to add event listener for the click event, and I want to say when this button is clicked, run this function, and the function will be, let's say, function event. Now I want to log the type of the event, I want to log the target of the event, I want to put the X coordinate of the click, the Y coordinate of the click, things like that. So this event already has that. This is the event object that we're trying to get. So I will use console.log event.type. So this is how we get access to the event object and the information that the object holds. So we have the, let's say, event.the target. We want to get the event.client X, event.client Y, like that. So it will give us all of this. So let's try to add event listener to this button, and let's get all of the events that are recorded from the event object. So we'll say, let me put this up here, document.getElementById button dot add event listener, and let's say we want to add the mouse over event. So I will say mouse over, and the event I want to attach here is the event function, and I will say console.log mouse over at, let's get the coordinate here. So we'll say mouse over at plus event.client X plus, let's put a comma to separate them, plus event.client Y. So something like this. So this is how we get access to the event type, the target, the X coordinate of the X click, and the Y coordinate click, like that. And here we want to try to add event listener to this button and log this event here. So let me refresh my page, and let's see mouse over at 785. When you mouse over, it will tell you what coordinates of the X. See here, when you mouse over again, it keeps logging. So this is an example of the event object and how to get information from the event object that is created whenever the event occurs. So when we did the mouse over, you can also do the mouse out. Okay, let's do mouse out event here. Let's say, let me mouse out here instead of mouse over. Let's do mouse out. We want mouse out at to tell us where the mouse out. So mouse over here, mouse out here, mouse over out. So it gives you the coordinates of when you mouse over and when you mouse out. So we have seen how we can get access to the different values that or the different information that the event object holds. Let's look at how we can prevent the default behavior. For instance, when we have an element on the page and the element has a default behavior and we want to change that behavior because we want to do something else, we can prevent the event behavior in JavaScript, and we do that first. So let's say on the HTML page we have this link here, and when I refresh this page, this link takes us to another page, Google, like this. But I don't want it to take us to Google when you click on the link. I want to do something else. So I want to prevent the default behavior for that link. So I want to say, let me delete one of these. Documents.getElementById. Let's put an ID attribute here, which is link. So document.getElementById link dot add event listener, and we want this event to be the click event, and we want this to, so the first thing you do in the function is to put event.prevent default. So this is another method that we are exposed to when the event object is created. So prevent default like this. So that default behavior is not what will happen, and then we can say console.log, or we can even use, like, let's use the alert, and we can now say something like default action prevented, like this. So when we come back here and we refresh, when we click on this, it just gives us default action prevented. It does not redirect to the page. So you can remove event listeners just the way we attach them. We can detach event listeners, and let me show you how to do that. When we, for instance, we have, let's use the button back here. Let's say we have this, let's use this button, and we want to attach an event to this button, and at the end of the day we want to remove the event from it. So let's have a function here. Let's say we have a function called show alert, for instance, and we want it to just display an alert box to say clicked, like this. We want to now add event listener to the button to call this function, and want to remove event listener. So we say button is equal to document.get element by ID. The element we are going to get is btn, and then we want to say button.add event listener, and we want to add, when the button is clicked, we want to run the function show alert. So you notice that when we are calling the function here, we don't put the pair of parentheses to remove the event listener. So let's see the event listener work. So click on this, the event is not attached, so we say get element by ID btn, that's the ID, and add event listener. Click is not clicked, sorry, so the event listener is clicked. So when I click on this, we have clicked. Now if we want to remove the listener, we can say button.remove event listener, and we want to remove the click event, and we want to remove the function that it shows when the button is clicked. So it only works if the same function reference is used, okay, like this. So when I come here now, this event will not work because I added and removed at the same time, so it's not working. So this is an example of when you remove event listener when something happens. So we have several real world examples. When you refer to your lesson resource, you'll see the real world examples for this, where we try using it in form validation, where we also try using it to change image when we hover over the image, and where we also try to hide and show passwords when you toggle the checkbox of show password to see the password you type, and hide password also. So we use that. So instead of adding event listener to every child element, we can add one to a parent and then use the event bubbling. And event bubbling is efficient for dynamically generated content. We're going to see that as you go along, but you can refer to your lesson resource to see an example of event bubbling, where we add a listener to a parent element, and then we add that event to a tag name, and then we use event bubbling. When we look at the document object model in the next lesson, we'll be able to go deeper to look at event delegation properly. So when event occurs in the document object model, it travels through three phases. We have the capturing phase, where it moves from the window down to the target. We have the target phase, where it reaches the target element, and then we have the bubbling phase, where it bubbles up from the target and back to the window. So in summary, we looked at the concept of an event that we say is an action that happens in the browser. We say an event handler is a function that executes when an event occurs. We said the event object contains details about the event. We use the add event listener method as the best way to attach events. We use prevent default to stop default browser behavior. We use stop propagation method to stop event bubbling, and you see that when we look at the document object model. And then event on the parent can be delegated to the child instead of adding for each child when we use event delegation. So this is where we end this lesson. Thank you, and see you in the next lesson.